Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming, especially those of you that took the time to come here, but we appreciate those who are watching as well. We have a very short agenda, happy to say, this morning, and but it's important that we move through it. So I want to say Mr. Blaylock is out of town with a death in his family. So if you would send him your good thoughts, he and his wife, good thoughts and prayers, I'm sure he would appreciate that. So we'll start, Ms. Stites, with approval of the minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as
So
presented?
moved, Madam Mayor.
Is there a second? All in favor? Yes. Second is a consideration of contract for the 20th Street Canal crossover repairs. The project has been approved. It's just the contract that we're looking at this point in time. Mr. Kelly?
Are there any questions?
Yes, I would note for the record that council has already reviewed each of the contracts, and there has been prior discussion and examination. Obviously, all the contracts are recommended by administration. There was a question which was raised by one of the citizens in the audience about the penalty clause in one of the contracts not appearing. And as I looked at the contract further, I note that the contract is almost 3.5 years old. So I think before we approve it, we should make it standard in all contracts that there's a penalty clause. So the reason for that omission is it was an older contract. We have subsequently begun adding that, so I would move that we do that.
Yes, sir. Now we'll make sure that's unified through all the contracts.
Thank you.
So is, Mr. Kraft?
Some additional questions, if I can, Mr. Kelly. A citizen asked me if I could find out if the replacement of the ramp and floating dock is included in this scope of work.
At 20th Street?
Yes, sir. I know I caught you off guard, but
Yes. It was at one time, but I want to make sure that it is or is not.
I think it was. And while I'm catching you off guard, sir, I was going to ask.
It shows it in the detail.
Okay.
On at section S9, shows the ramp section in the platform. And so with that, I would say that it should be, but I will verify that. And if it is not, bring that back to you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Also, is it the lighting included?
The lighting is not, it was something that staff added in. So we would add, I think there's 2 lights, the need for 2 more lights, and then look at the cabana area or the seating area to see what we want to install there.
Lastly, if I may, is this going to take place during the tourist season, the repairs?
They will start, they have been waiting for this, so we'll give this to them and they can get started. If we want to put a delay on it, the prices will change. So I don't think that's something that we want to look at. I don't know if prices are going to come down or go up, or the availability of the contractor. We have something etched in his schedule right now for him to get started. So I would say it would start as soon as y'all issue the contract. It won't start that day, but within the next 30 days.
And it's a 90-day completion?
I would say, again, it's availability of materials. Last time he had to pull off and come back, but hopefully we can find everything that we need this time.
Thank you.
That's what it goes for all the wooden projects that we have.
So, Mr. Kelly, would it be fair to say that once the contract is settled, our request of the contractor will be moved with all due dispatch, right?
Yes, sir.
And scheduled then to be forthcoming once the contract is approved?
Yeah, as soon as we get the contract back to them, we'll ask the engineer to provide a detailed work schedule, and then we can advertise that along on the webpage Mike can put out there so people can see what all the project timeframes are.
Thank you.
Do I have a motion from council?
I'll make a motion to award the bid and approve the contract with S&C Construction LLC for the 20th Street Canal crossover project in the amount of $525,000 with the additional stipulations that Mr. Bach requested.
I'll second that.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Second contract for consideration are the bulkhead repairs at Dutchman Creek at Northeast 54th Street. Mr. Kelly.
Yes, ma'am, and we'll review the contract to make sure all the same language is in both as well. This has been sort of an ongoing issue for the last three and a half years. It's something we need to bring forward. It was something that was agreed upon with the Dutchman Creek Villas when we had some property changes and those kind of things for the parking lot and the street closure. So we bring this forth before you this afternoon or morning.
Questions? Is there a motion?
I can make a motion. Make a motion to award the bid for the Northeast 54th Street bulkhead repairs project to TD Uri and to approve the contract in the amount of $203,500.
Second.
All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you. Next is the contract with Hickman Utilities for the stormwater project. It's excited to finally get to this point.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there anything you have?
What we have is Hickman Utilities. The project was sort of approved a few months back, and then we bringing the contract back in front of you. The dollars were put into a special project about a year and a half ago. Money is available. This is phase one along Ocean Drive down in the Yopon section, and then we're looking at bringing stage two to you for the next year's budget to help with the flooding of the Beach Drive in that area so people can access the properties.
Questions of Mr. Kelly?
Mr. Kelly, if at some point in the near future, we could ask our stormwater manager, Mr. Rick, to lay out the long-term plan for stormwater. This is phase one. You've alluded to phase two, but it seems to me there'll be multiple phases in this process, especially as we try to ameliorate the problem. I doubt very much we can eliminate all stormwater issues on an island. But if we have a strategy and a plan that goes out several years, in keeping with our 3-year horizon for budgeting, it would be, I think, very useful for council to have a look at that.
Yes, sir. These areas that we're looking at, they were actually 5 different phases that we looked at for the first 4 years. And then in the budget that we sort of already briefly talked about.
I see the esteemed gentleman in the back, and I won't put him on the spot.
No, there's dollars in there for next year's budget to do a
Fair enough.
total assessment of the stormwater.
Just, it's nice to have the horizon view, what we're trying to do, and estimated cost, and the difficulty, and, you know, there's a lot of information that would be very helpful to us as we take this problem on.
And we're still applying for the grants, the BRIC grant again, applied for the second phase of that. So we're always searching for funds for the stormwater.
Any other questions? Does council have a motion?
Do you need a motion, David, if we've already approved it?
Need a motion for the
For
contract.
the contract?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor? Moving right along. Consideration of an action to request a local act to allow Oak Island to adopt and enact ordinances regulating removal, replacement, and preservation of trees within our territorial jurisdiction. So I don't think I need to comment much in terms of how important our trees are to the island and especially in terms of their buffering, helping us buffer storms and just anchor our soil. So they're foundational, and I think it's important, especially in light of HB 496, that we make the appeal to our General Assembly through Representative Miller that they'd give us this consideration. There are other towns locally that have this local act. I think it's just critically important for the island. Are there anything else, Mr. Kelly? Add?
No, ma'am, believe you've covered that.
Questions?
Not a question, but I'm happy to second your comments, Madam Mayor. In my view, although no doubt well-intentioned, the legislature has made a mistake in removing local control, and it seems to me inconsistent with what we want to do as a community, which is preserve our tree canopy. So we absolutely need this authorization. Despite passing 2 tree ordinances in the last 5 years that I'm familiar with, including the revision that the planning board offered to this body, there's still dissatisfaction with the destruction of our tree canopy. It grows daily. So without authorization, we're not going to be able to remedy that situation. So this is absolutely essential.
I would agree. Any other comments?
I would just add to highlight that this is a request. It's not, we're not passing an act today. So tomorrow, if you see a tree being removed from a property, it's not because this is being ignored. It starts with the request. And if the request is met, then we will have the ability to introduce more to our current ordinance. We have a vegetation ordinance today. You can find that on our website that does regulate replacement of trees. I've been a proponent for making sure we identify proper trees to keep before we decide which ones we replace. So I'm hoping that our request for this local act will get approved, and so we can continue to fine-tune and enhance what we have today around vegetation and including smart yards. I always encourage people, go to our website, read up on a smart yard. You'll see signs throughout our community where people are adopting a smart yard approach. It's a wonderful effort, and it's greatly appreciated by everybody. So check out the website, read up on our vegetation ordinance, and look at the smart yard. And let's hope that this goes through so we can continue to enhance those tools.
In conjunction with what Councilman Martin said and Councilman Bach said, I'm very much in favor of this. And going forward, I think we need to delve into how to better protect our tree canopy and how to better understand the clear cutting and the leaving of trees and the protecting of trees. And we need to get serious on that. But as you said, Councilman Martin, this is our first step.
Is there a motion from council?
I can make it.
Please.
I make a motion to direct staff to forward to the North Carolina General Assembly the Town of Oak Island's request for a local act to grant the authority to regulate trees.
All in favor? And it's unanimous. Thank you, council. And thank you. It's nice to hear applause versus the other end of that spectrum for once. I do want to say that this is but one step in a series of steps that need to occur in order for this to take effect. Our Environmental Advisory Committee does a tremendous job in bringing awareness to issues where our town, where we can do better, and certainly supports us in implementing those initiatives. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there is, coming before council is another round of recommendations from staff through the EAC. I would like for those to be fast-tracked, if at all possible. But the act, again, is one step. Our ordinances, while that's going through General Assembly, our ordinances operate separate and apart from that. So there is no reason to wait for the local act to be considered at the General Assembly in order for us to take action on our own local ordinances. There's nothing currently prohibiting that. But I also want to make everyone aware, and I hope our EAC and community will help to support, to reach out to General Assembly members that we have elected and/or own, or have a second home here, that we can engage them in supporting our request for that local act. Last but not least, a budget ordinance amendment for parking signs, gravel, parking bumpers, et cetera, to begin to put in place, or to continue actually what's needed to move parking forward. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, ma'am. We have Mr. Hatton here today to take any questions for the budget amendment. It's basically setting up a fund for us to start working out of for the paid parking.
I have set up a fund in our financials for the paid parking program because, you know, that will be to account for the money that we do receive from Auto Connect, as well as account for all of the expenses that we have. Because I want, obviously, to be total transparency with paid parking. And I felt that was the best thing to do. This money that's coming over from the general fund now, my intent is to pay that back as soon as I can. It's not a formal loan, it's like an advance. And hopefully within April or May, that money will come back to the general fund. And would like to add that to see some example of what's going on with this money, the parking lot out back here, next to the beach, if you'll drive by there and see the improvements that's been made and how it was starting to look, and they're all going to be that way eventually.
Excellent. Are there more questions for Mr. Kelly or Mr. Hatton?
All I have to say is, as always, Mr. Hatton has our back, so I have no questions about any decision he chooses to make at this point on that.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget ordinance amendment as presented.
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous.
Madam Mayor, before we recess, Councilman Balk had something on page 124 about the Zoom meetings.
I'm sorry, that's not on our agenda
You can't put
today.
it on.
Can't do it today,
Agenda, not
Advertise
today.
for it.
but I have nothing else.
But thank you for keeping that on our radar.
Can I make the motion?
I know you're itching to. Go right ahead.
It's payroll day, I gotta go.
I got it.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I second.
In favor. And it too is unanimous. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming. And we're moving gradually forward, so we appreciate your support.
Payroll day.
Word for word.